our progress, we now have, as you know, 24 swap execution facilities. Trading volumes are increasing, and through the summer, notional value executed on SEFs was generally in excess of 1.5 trillion weekly. We've seen increases recently. Based on trading data collected by Claris Financial, total notional traded volume on SEFs is up 49% in October versus February of this year. CDS SEF activity has increased over 100% over that time period. One SEF recently confirmed that it had exceeded 700 buy-side firms as participants. Now, there are ups and downs month to month, but I think the general trend is good. It indicates that the process of operationalizing this trading framework is moving forward. That is no small task. Establishing the new platforms, developing the new workflows, creating the administrative infrastructure, testing and refining to make sure things work smoothly, take time, effort, and resources. And the increase in SEF trading means that the benefits envisioned under the law are beginning to be realized. The primary purpose of the trade execution requirement was to provide greater price transparency. This can bring better pricing to market participants and better information to the public at large. In addition, trading on regulated platforms can bring greater integrity to the trading process, as well as facilitate straight-through processing. There is, of course, more to do. And as with any new market, there are issues, and there has been and will continue to be discussion, sometimes debate, among market participants as to how best to develop these platforms. The views on what the CFTC should do are quite varied. I've met with many of the SEFs, many market participants in my 4.5 months in office. Some say our oversight rules are too demanding and too costly. Others, however, want us to be more specific in certain ways, such as what SEF rulebooks should say, so that no SEF gains an unfair advantage and participants do not have to spend time worrying about differences in the rulebooks. Some want us to exercise more control over the process of determining which products are required to be traded on SEFs. Others say be less prescriptive about execution methods. So there are many issues, many different views, I'm sure including within this very room. And so let me just outline some of the principles that guide my approach. So first, to state the obvious, our duty is to implement the law. The law created the trading mandate. It prescribed its general terms. It prescribed the core principles that SEFs must follow. And it directed us to write rules to implement the trading mandate and those core principles. Whatever we do must be faithful to the law. Second, market development takes time. We must remember the SEF rules are barely a year old. The first MAT determinations are 8 months old. It is still early. This is a work in progress. Participants are still adapting and technology is evolving. Third, markets don't develop simply as a result of government directives. Markets develop, markets thrive when private actors find it beneficial to transact. And so we must create a regulatory framework that not only implements the statutory trading requirements, but that creates conditions in which participants wish to trade on SEFs. And I think the history of the development of the securities and futures markets in our country is useful to think about in this regard. In the 1930s, we created a framework for securities regulation and trading which proved tremendously successful. But at the time, many of its mandates were revolutionary, and many felt those requirements would be the death knell of capitalism. When the Securities Exchange Act was passed, the president of the New York Stock Exchange said it was, quote, a menace to national recovery, close quote. So history has proved otherwise. Today, public reporting, basic trading requirements of our securities laws are about as controversial as seatbelts. And indeed, those requirements, in my mind, have been the foundation for the growth of our securities markets. The history of the futures market is no different. Congress created a framework for the regulation of the industry that properly balanced allowing innovation with strong oversight. We have the strongest, largest, and most dynamic futures markets in the world, in part because they have the integrity and transparency that attracts participants. So my goal is to build a regulatory framework that not only meets the congressional mandate of bringing this market out of the shadows, but which creates the foundation for the market to thrive. That regulatory framework must ensure transparency, integrity, and oversight, and at the same time, permit innovation, freedom, and competition. In particular, in this day and age, and with these products, we recognize the power of technological development. Our rules should encourage it. In short, this should be a situation where if you build it, and the you is many of you, they will come. So let me touch on some of the issues we're looking at in a couple of areas, and then I'll be happy to take any questions you have. Let me talk about maybe three categories: general oversight, products, and methods of execution. So in regard to oversight, we want to make sure there is strong oversight because it promotes integrity and therefore confidence by participants. But at the same time, we do not want that oversight to burden participants, particularly the users of these markets, unnecessarily. Now, I think that's consistent with our general regulatory approach in futures. That is, we have strong oversight of futures exchanges to make sure there's not fraud and manipulation in trading. Strong oversight of clearinghouses to make sure they have adequate financial and operational resources. And strong oversight of intermediaries like futures commission merchants to make sure customer funds are protected and they monitor risk adequately. And so similarly for swaps, we need to strike the right balance in terms of where burdens and responsibilities fall. Our framework should provide strong oversight of SEFs and swap dealers. We should seek to make sure that our rules do not impose unnecessary or duplicative burdens on market participants, particularly the non-financial companies who do not generate the types of risks that the reforms were intended to check. The benefits of transparency and integrity in trading should flow to them. So one of my priorities generally has been to fine-tune our rules in this regard. And we have done this in several areas, as you may have seen, particularly to focus on issues of concern to non-financial commercial companies that use these markets. And so, for example, last week, we proposed changes to Rule 135 on record keeping. And this, in particular, will benefit SEF trading because it applies to SEF participants who are not otherwise registered with the agency. They will not have to keep text, and we are reducing the burdens with respect to records being searchable. In addition, in response to feedback from WAMBA and others, we have sought to be flexible with respect to some of the oversight rules that we require of SEFs. Let me turn to a second category, products. Now here, packages have been an area of concern recently. Of course, packages might more accurately be thought of as strategies rather than products, because they involve multiple products. But whatever name you use, there is no doubt that different types of packages introduce significant complexities as we look to bring them into the SEF and DCM framework. And therefore, since the time of the first map determinations earlier this year, the Commission has been working with market participants to figure out how to deal with packages in which one leg is a MAT swap. To enable that process, we issued no action relief earlier this year. And for some types of packages, the market has developed technical solutions and the relief has expired. For others, however, we recognize that more time is needed. And so consequently, at my direction, the staff this week extended previously issued no action relief so that we continue to work with market participants on phasing in trading for certain types of packages. Now we've become more and more granular in breaking out types of packages as time has gone on. For example, we identified one category of packages, MAT swaps package with agency MBS, as one where the industry was close to ready, but just needed a few more months. For others, we will require the MAT component to take place on a SEF or a DCM, but we will not require them to be subject to competitive execution. This approach will be phased in 3 months from now, and then the relief will expire a year afterwards. Here, we believe that moving the MAT legs of packages onto a SEF or DCM will result in key benefits. They will be traded on platforms that have the transparency and integrity of regulated markets. The SEFs and DCMs will have the opportunity to innovate or apply their technology to develop appropriate workflows. And we as regulators will have access to data not previously available, that will help us assess what should happen when the relief is due to expire. So phasing of rule implementation and compliance deadlines in this area has been an important part of our approach, and it should be. Phasing provides market participants the necessary time to develop operational procedures and safeguards, and to transition smoothly to the new framework without unnecessary disruption or costs. Now, of course, in some areas, phasing isn't appropriate. It simply allows practices to persist that should be changed. But in this case, it can be a very important tool. Another issue regarding products is the made available for trade or MAT process itself, by which a type of swap can become required to be traded on a SEF or DCM. Now, as you know, the initiative rests with the market. Any SEF can propose a MAT determination to the Commission. This was modeled after the process followed for product innovation in other financial markets, including the futures market. But some have suggested this puts too much in the hands of the market. The CFTC instead should decide which products, or at least when a product, should be subject to a MAT determination. Now, it's unusual to hear market participants ask a regulator to perhaps exercise a bit more authority over the ability of participants to compete and innovate, but I understand the concern. I can't say whether we will consider changing the process, but I'm certainly open to thinking about it. Finally, let me note quickly some of the issues on execution methods and market structure. I've heard a lot of different views in this area. Now, some say that for all the talk of a new market framework, not much has changed. Yes, they say we now have regulated SEFs, required trading in data, but dealer-to-dealer and dealer-to-client trading venues existed previously. How are we in a different or better place today? CFTC should do more, they say. Others take the view that we should let the market determine best methods of execution and market structure. Bilateral relationships continue to be important for valid business reasons, they say. And at least today, market makers are still needed. So I expect we will look at several issues here, and we will welcome your comments, including anonymity, for example, or name giving. Some have said the practice is discouraging SEF trading, or in particular, usage of central limit order books. Post-trade affirmation is another issue where many feel the Commission should do something. Another issue is whether certain execution methods that aren't strictly RFQ or cloud are consistent with the legal requirements, and whether our rules should allow flexibility as long as basic transparency and fairness requirements are met so that the markets can innovate. We look forward to listening to market participants on these and other issues that may arise. We will also focus on the cross-border implications of our rules. Now, here, I think it's important to keep in mind where we are historically. And I didn't hear the prior panel, but I'm sure this was talked about. Swaps industry grew to be a global industry without any regulation. Now we are creating a regulatory framework for it. That must necessarily be done through the actions of separate nation states, each of which has its own legal traditions, regulatory approaches, political processes, timetables, and so forth. So it should not surprise anyone that there are differences in the rules that affect cross-border trading. It should not surprise anyone that traders will seek to do what business they can outside of our rules when other jurisdictions have not yet implemented, or in some cases even written, their rules. But like my counterparts in Europe and Asia, I am committed to harmonizing our rules as much as possible. It will, however, take some time. So let me close on the following. Well-working markets depend on good regulation and oversight, and that requires resources. Unfortunately, we are very stretched. And to give you just a few examples, as I talked about earlier about the SEF's registrations, we are not able to process SEF registration applications as quickly as we would like. The same people responsible to review SEF applications have numerous other responsibilities. Some of them are here. They should actually be back in Washington doing that. Just kidding. But please understand that. Please be patient. We are limited in our ability to analyze market data and developments and respond to market participant concerns. We can't consider adjustments to rules or other actions as quickly as we would like. The number and depth of our examinations of clearinghouses and exchanges and other intermediaries is reduced, potentially leaving risks unaddressed. We are limited in our ability to address emerging concerns such as cybersecurity and business continuity recovery. And we do not have sufficient resources for surveillance and enforcement. And the simple fact is that without additional resources, our markets cannot be as well supervised, and participants cannot be as well protected, and market transparency and efficiency cannot be as fully achieved. The United States has the best financial markets in the world. They have been a significant engine of our economic growth and prosperity. I intend to do everything I can to further that tradition. Good regulation is necessary to keep them that way. And as with any significant reform effort, there will be issues to work through. I look forward to working with you as we move forward.